Hey, I'm Zane Gonzalez. You're watching the Harris Highlight Show.
Na 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 na.
Coming to you live from downtown Phoenix, this is Season 2, Episode 14 of the Harris Highlight Show. Joining me this week is our college football analyst Josh Schaefer with fantasy guru Lyle Goldstein, or so he says, and our executive producer Brady Klain. I'm your host for the evening, Blake Harris. Now guys, before we get on to the episode, this week's episode is brought to you by SeatGeek. Head on over to SeatGeek.com and enter the promo code Harris Highlights and you'll receive $20 off your very first order. Guys, we normally do this episode on Tuesday nights, posted on Wednesday, but it is Sunday evening, and well, the reason we're doing it early is because it is Thanksgiving week. You guys are going home. Lyle, you're going to New York. Brady, you're going to Indianapolis, I think it is. Josh, you're going back home to Cali with me. College football playoff rankings aren't out yet, so we don't have those, but as we mentioned last week, we just had a slate of just awful games, just horrible games, so our assumption is there's going to be no major changes. We think the top 10 is going to stay the exact same, with the one exception possibly being Wisconsin. So guys, I'm just going to start off the bat really quickly. Do you think Wisconsin is going to leapfrog from 5 and find themselves in the top 4?
I am not entirely sure. I think that they can make an argument that they deserve to be. I mean, right now they're sitting at 5 behind Clemson, Oklahoma, Miami, and Alabama. Excuse me, that's the AP top 5. I don't think that, I thought they had a good enough win. I think they're definitely up there for consideration, but now I think that undefeated record is starting to be in their favor a little bit more, if that makes sense.
I mean, I think they have a chance, but you look at Michigan's record, who Wisconsin beat this past weekend. They don't have a ranked win on their schedule this year. There are 3 losses, Michigan State, Penn State, and Wisconsin, easily the 3 toughest teams they've played. So if I'm Wisconsin, I don't think they get in. I think they're getting close, but I don't think any of the teams in the top 4, specifically Oklahoma, who had a big win over Kansas, did enough to slip up and for Wisconsin to overtake them.
Yeah, I still don't think there's a reason why Wisconsin deserves to be there. I mean, yes, they're undefeated. They're number 5 in the AP poll, but there are 2 teams ahead of them that are 11-1, 1 losses, but I think those 2 teams have solidified wins, have good opponents that they've played, so I think there's no chance Wisconsin jumps up to 4.
I think Wisconsin is in the same boat as Notre Dame, where it doesn't matter where they're ranked. It doesn't matter because, well, aside from Notre Dame, who doesn't have a chance to make the playoff, Wisconsin, whether they're ranked 5th, whether they're ranked 4th, whether they're ranked 6th or 7th, if they win the Big Ten title game and they finish the season undefeated, and it is now confirmed that it is going to be Ohio State. So if they win this week and then beat Ohio State, they should be, in my opinion, be one of the 4 teams that makes it. You can't go 13-0 and win your conference and not make it. So Wisconsin, like I said, I think they deserve to be in the top 4. I don't think Michigan's a good team, but they did beat a ranked opponent this week. I don't think they'll move. I think they'll stay at 5, but they're going to end up in the top 4, I think.
So, sorry, real quick, but I think if they do win out and do win their conference, then I think they do get into that playoff spot.
I don't think there's a way you can keep them out at that point.
Especially with 2 ACC teams at 2 and 3. I mean, that ACC title game is going to determine which team gets in. I think Miami, even with 1 loss, would bump out of the top 5, or get bumped out, I should say, because their schedule just hasn't been tough enough outside of Notre Dame.
But as I mentioned, there just weren't that many great. I mean, there were some good games this past weekend, but none that are really going to have any implications on the college football playoff rankings that are really going to shake it up. So I want to switch things over right now, and that is to Baker Mayfield. We talked about him last week being the Heisman favorite, which personally I think he still is. We'll talk about that in a few minutes, but I want to talk about his incident at Kansas. For those who didn't see, he went to shake the hands at the very beginning of the game, and the Kansas players declined the offer, and, well, as you can imagine, Baker Mayfield had a field day, and towards the end of the game, he got a touchdown, and then he proceeded to grab his crotchal region, and then yell many expletives at the Kansas sideline. So, guys, I just want to know what your thoughts are on Baker Mayfield's actions.
First off, let me start by saying, Kansas, what are you doing? Why would you put you are what, 1-9, and you're like, okay, we're gonna put ourselves in a situation to look horribly, horribly stupid. So I would love to hear a Kansas fan's perspective. I would also love to know what those Kansas players were thinking. I would love to just hear their side of things. But I think it was absolutely brainless on their part. And then when it comes back to Baker Mayfield, I know I might be the only person in this room that feels this way, but I think it's dumb. I hate it. Just be the bigger person. You know there are cameras around. Why? I just don't get it. Why retaliate at that point? If you're looking at the sideline, if you're pointing to him, if you're talking trash, that's one thing. But there are cameras around, and then when you do that gesture,
the end of the Beastquake.
I think that's also kind of brainless too.
I mean, I think anybody that's a college football fan could have told you that Oklahoma-Kansas was going to be a blowout in favor of Oklahoma.
Yeah.
But that game was over from the minute that those Kansas players didn't shake Baker's hand, because that gave Baker a motive to absolutely give them what's in the most PG form I can say, beat him down pretty hard this weekend, because he had a dominant game, as he should have, over Kansas. In terms of what he did, yeah, he was in the wrong for doing it. I don't agree with him for doing it, but the guy's just a competitor. He was fired up. I'm sure what happened earlier before the game was still fresh in his mind, and he let it get the best of him. So in terms of punishment, maybe Oklahoma does something in-house, nothing big, but for Baker Mayfield, I think you kind of just shrug it off, you live and you learn, and everybody moves on.
I like it because Lyle and I have talked about this. He's a competitor. He just is there to win the game that he is playing and loves to play. I mean, what energy that guy brought to the field. And like you all said, they don't shake his hand. That minute, you're like, oh, he's going to put up 10 touchdowns today. Like, it's over before it even started. And granted, it was Kansas. They were 1-8, 1-9, whatever it was before this game. So, yeah, I think it was worse on Kansas. I think the game may have been a little closer if they didn't do that, and because they gave Baker Mayfield extra motive to just tear them apart.
The thing that I love most about this whole thing is that not only did they refuse to shake his hand, they did it in front of children. There were 2 or 3 kids just... At first, originally, when I saw the video, I thought it was the kids that refused to shake the hand. And I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of cute. That's funny. The players probably told them not to do it. But then I realized it was the players that did it in front of the kids. So not only are you being morons, you're setting a bad example in front of the kids. But personally, me, coming into the year, I wasn't the biggest Baker Mayfield fan. But my goodness, has he grown on me this season. With the thing with the flag at the beginning of the year and now this. Like I said, if Kansas wouldn't have done what they did, Baker Mayfield would be in the wrong. But the fact that they disrespected him like that at the beginning of the game, I think he had every right to do it. I think it's still not the best, especially knowing that the cameras are on him. Maybe just a little FU would have been nice, but the whole crotchal grab. But personally, I think that's awesome. I think he may have been over the line a little too much, but I saw a tweet on Twitter. It was from Matt Miller, who covers college football for Bleacher Report, and he summed it up perfectly. Half of NFL GMs are going to absolutely hate this, and the other half are going to absolutely love it. So I feel like that's the kind of boat that people are in. Either you hate it or you love it. There's no in between.
Oh, I agree. I absolutely agree. And the best part is, I think you summed it up perfectly, Blake. Baker Mayfield's grown on me a lot this season, too. I wasn't the biggest fan of his before the season started, but the best part was Baker's reaction at the beginning of the game. Those Kansas players, they didn't shake his hand, they didn't extend their hands, and he just tilts his head back and laughs. He just laughs. Like, he knows he's above them. He knows he's going to beat them, and this just gave him more of a motive. Like I said, he was in the wrongdoing for what he did on the sidelines, but for the most part, I like everything he did.
But, as we all could have imagined, Baker Mayfield had a fantastic game. So, Guy, we talked about it last week. I still personally believe he is the Heisman favorite. We saw some graphic where the odds for him they're not 20-1 odds, they're 1-20 odds, which are unbelievable odds considering that the next closest is 7 or 8-1. So essentially what that means is for every $20 you bet on him, you win $1, which is unbelievable. So guys, there's 1 week in the regular season, and then obviously you got the conference championships, which Oklahoma is going to be in. Does Baker Mayfield officially now win the Heisman?
Unless he breaks Samaje Perine's, Saquon Barkley that is, breaks Samaje Perine's single game rushing record with an extra 5 or 6 touchdowns, I say no. Baker Mayfield's got it in the bag.
Well, Lyle said that Saquon Barkley had it in the bag as well, and we've seen how that's gone. So I'm going to go ahead and not give it to him yet. We can't count Saquon out yet. We saw the week that he just had last week, and or this past weekend. He had another great weekend. Went off. Brady said it was over 200 total yards.
225 total yards, 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, and he's been doing that for a majority of the season. So I'm not counting out Saquon just yet.
Like I said, the good thing for Baker is he does have that conference championship game. I don't know if the votes are in before then or after, but Saquon, Penn State, they're not going to be in the Big Ten championship game, so I think that's actually going to hurt him. As we've seen, it doesn't matter what you do at the beginning of the season. It matters how you finish the season. And Saquon, I'm sorry, but these last 3 or 4 weeks have been just absolutely horrendous.
I mean,
they've been horrendous.
He's got 98 yards of rushing through the last 2 games. And keep in mind, 35 yards of rushing on 14 carries against Rutgers. I'm sorry, that's not a Heisman winner in my mind. I know I said he was the front runner by far at the beginning of the year, but he really let it slip these last few games.
You guys are just continuing to contradict yourselves at this point when it comes to the Heisman, because earlier in the season you guys said there's no way Mayfield competes for a Heisman, and now you're saying that there's no way Saquon competes for a Heisman.
Yeah, that's because of what's been happening the last 4 weeks.
And you literally cannot count him out yet. These last couple weeks have been horrendous for him despite what he's done the first 6 weeks of the season.
Yeah, but Penn State's also fallen, which definitely helps. But like I said, Vegas has him at 1-20, which means it's not us that have him like a lock. 1-20 odds are pretty much, unless you die, you're gonna win it. Like you don't see 1-20 odds ever.
Like I said, if Saquon Barkley breaks P. Ryan's single game rushing record, then maybe.
I mean, we all personally, when we did our Heisman's like last week or whatever it was, we had Barkley. I don't know where he was. He was like my number 4.
I had him at 3.
I had him at 3. Josh, I don't know where you had him. Maybe
I think I had him at 2.
I had him 1 or 2. I still think it's Baker. So, I mean, sure, Barkley might still get votes, but what it comes down to is, I think what they're going to look at, they're going to look at that Ohio State game, a game in which he did not. Like, he had that opening kickoff return. He had like that 30-yard touchdown. If you take away those 2 plays, I think it was like he had 16, 17 carries for about 30 yards. And then you go back to his Rutgers game, Lyle, where it was, you said, I think 14 for 35. He in the big games, he has not showed up, and he's just digressed. And Baker Mayfield the last few weeks has really turned it around. He had the win against Oklahoma State, the win against TCU, and now a win against Kansas, but he put up remarkable numbers. And overall in the season, his numbers are just phenomenal. So I still think it's Baker Mayfield. I'm going to give him like a 90% chance to win it. Like I said, like Lyle said, barring some game where Saquon Barkley breaks a bunch of records this week and Oklahoma loses, that's the only way I think they can get it done.
I mean, in big games, but you go back and you look at some of the big games that Penn State's had, he didn't really do a whole lot against Michigan State. He had 63 yards. He had about like 96 yards total. Ohio State, he had a touchdown. And then you go back and you look at Michigan and Iowa, which at this point are both big games. Iowa was a huge game, and he had 211 rushing yards and 1 touchdown, and he had 94 receiving yards. And similar numbers against Michigan, over 100 yards and 2 TDs.
Yeah, well, that Iowa game, they won by a point, and that win is not looking that good now. Iowa's like lost like 2 or 3 games.
Yeah, but then you go and you look at all of the other teams that are in the top 10, and everyone's had a scare at some point in the season, and that was their scare.
But Baker Mayfield's beaten like 2 teams in the top 10 the last 2 weeks.
That's true.
Baker's going to end the season with over 4,000 passing yards and 40 total touchdowns. I think he's got this Heisman in the bag.
Like I said, it's just the fact that Saquon, and with Penn State losing, that's just what hurt him. But the last 3 or 4 weeks, I mean, we've seen what happened. But I think it's only a 2-man race at this point. I don't think there's any other competition really.
I mean, I still think Bryce Love should be in the mix because he hasn't slowed down at all.
I think he'll be invited.
He totally should be.
He'll be invited for sure.
It's just the fact that Stanford, okay, they have a chance, I should say, to make the Pac-12 championship. That is, if UW wins in the Apple Cup. So Bryce Love, like, I know Stanford isn't competing for the playoffs, but he hasn't slowed down at all.
Well, it is going to be interesting to see, but let's move on really quickly, guys. I do want to touch up on kind of a one game and then going on to the game, what resulted from the game, and that is USC-UCLA. But USC, a very good game. Everyone was coming into the game very hyped because of Josh Rosen versus Sam Darnold. Most likely going to be the only time the 2 quarterbacks meet because it looks like Rosen's going to go into the draft. Darnold, who knows, but everyone was very hyped to see this matchup. It was the primetime game at 5 o'clock. USC, I forget what the final score was. I think they ended up winning by, they were up by 5. Did they win by 5? Is that what it
was? 28-23.
So they ended up winning by 5 points. A very close game. So Josh, I'm going to swing it to you because you watched most of it because I was enjoying a nice, relaxing, warm hot tub session last night. The close game, was that more so UCLA just kind of playing a little better than we thought they would? Or did USC kind of just not really show up as much as they should have? Because I think the spread was 17 for SC going into this game.
Real quick, Josh, before I say that, I just want to say the punt that USC return that USC executed, hands down the best special teams play of the year and one of the best overall plays of the year.
Yeah, that was unbelievable. And Michael Pittman, who ran that back, I've been waiting for him to explode like that. One of my best friends is very good friends with him. He seems like a great guy, and I've watched him play in high school a number of times. So he's been a lot of fun to watch. But in terms of this game, you look at the quarterback numbers for each player, for each quarterback, and the more flashy numbers go for Rosen. Darnold, I thought, was a little bit more effective in the end. Darnold didn't even have a single passing touchdown. But ultimately, I think that game just sums up perfectly why they are complete opposites at their position. I mean, they are totally different, and that's something I said earlier in the year. You can debate who do you want more, but bottom line, they're completely different. I think it depends on your offense. In terms of UCLA, I believe they had more total yards. I thought USC's front seven was great. The secondary was absolutely atrocious. The reason UCLA was in this game at all is not because of Josh Rosen. It's not because of their defense, although their defense did play very well. Jordan Lasley. I mean, there were a couple plays when the Bruins got extremely lucky, as in Lasley was simply not covered on one play, and another play he had that triple deflection off the helmet that he caught when he was on the ground. But Jordan Lasley, and I said it multiple times to you guys last night watching the game, he's their best player. Jordan Lasley is their best player. Jordan Lasley could start on any team in the country, and I think when you see a team that has been lackluster in conference and just throughout the entire course of the season, like we saw with Oregon State yesterday, let's be honest, there are Oregon State starters that would not start on ASU, and ASU is not a fabulous football team. But Jordan Lasley is a player that would start on any team in the Pac-12, could start on any team in the country. He's fabulous, and I've been saying that for a long time. I think he's their best player. Rosen's a good quarterback. I think they were in that game solely because of Jordan Lasley. But yes, I do think at certain points their defense did step up last night.
Well, and as we've seen, as a result of that loss, I mean, if they would have won, who knows if it would have been any different, but they did fire Jim Mora, something that I think has been long overdue. When we were at the ASU game about a week ago, we saw planes flying over the stadium with banners that were reading, fire Mora, so I guess the time finally came. So I guess where do they go now for a replacement? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
So this is something that I saw, and I think the USC loss doesn't really have an effect on it. I just think it was an excuse to fire him sooner, because I think it's been said for a while. I mean, it's tough to say this just because our listeners and you guys know my background of college football. UCLA fans, a lot of them tend to give up very early. So when UCLA is 8-4, granted that's not super special for most teams, but UCLA is 8-4, they're going to a bowl game, they're competing for the Pac-12 South title. Fans are on cloud 9. You have a season that's less than 7 wins, and all of a sudden, what is he doing in charge of your program? And it's been 2 disappointing years, but look, we've had Todd Graham, and I like Todd Graham, but I've said 3 strikes and you're out since we started this show, and I think after this season, that's his 3rd strike, and he'll have to go. But right now, the reason why UCLA is moving on from him is because they need to get themselves out in the coaching carousel, because there are all these other teams that are looking for coaches right now, and if UCLA delays any longer, they're going to get stuck with Mora, and if they let him go too late, they're not getting anybody big, and I think that's what UCLA wants. But, the fans didn't want him there anymore. The players loved him. I feel absolutely terrible for him, but to be totally honest, I think it's hilarious how the fan base has absolutely turned on him in the matter of 365 days.
I personally hate whenever you fire a coach, especially when there's 1 game left in the year, but you bring up a good point. They need to start looking for coaches now because, they fire him next week, and all of a sudden, there's someone that they liked that gets snatched up by someone else. You got to get on top of it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, which direction they go. I mean, Butch Jones making his way to the Pac-12, wouldn't that be something? Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. We can do another segment on.
I saw somebody mention Kiffin.
Oh, jeez.
And Sark.
Kiffin's taking his team to the Is it CUSA? The CUSA Championship.
Is it American? I don't know.
I think it's CUSA.
I don't know.
And that does bring us to the Q&A. Now, last time I checked, once again, over 100 questions. Brady over here has been scrolling through and finding the best ones. So, Brady, you got some down. Now, we do have a little extra time to do some Q&As because it is a shorter show. So, we can add a few extras, so don't let that stop you. But let's get it away. Let's see what you got for us so far.
Which is more likely to happen? A conference with 2 teams in the playoff or a team with 2 losses in the playoffs?
2 losses. I think the only team, or the only conference that still has a chance to put 2 teams in the playoff, as of right now, would be the ACC, but one of those teams is bound to lose in the title game, so I think the 2-loss scenario is much more likely, considering Auburn, if they win out, they're in.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's gotten to the point where a 2-loss team is probably more likely. I don't think it's completely written off that we won't see 2 teams from the same conference. I think that's still very possible, but I think it's more likely to see a 2-loss team.
I think without a doubt it's going to be a 2-loss team. I don't think 2 teams from the same conference stand any chance to make it.
Who is the worst team in FBS football?
I mean, I could just go with UTEP since they have the worst record and they're 0-11 now. But I'm going to go with Baylor. Mainly because, one, they only have 1 win on the season. And I think they're just underperforming. I think they have a lot of good recruits that are on that team, and they've just given up.
I agree. I think it's Baylor. I mean, UTEP, you don't really expect them to make much noise, to say the least, but Baylor, they're supposed to be Big 12 contenders every year, and they've been absolutely atrocious this year.
I also want to give another shout-out. I think BYU might be a contender. They only have 3 wins on the year. But, I mean, the last 6, 7, 8 years, they've been one of the better non-Power 5 teams out there. They've constantly been winning 8 to 10 games. Coming into the year, they had high expectations, and they have looked terrible this season. So I hate to do it, but BYU, yikes.
So I think BYU and Baylor would both beat an 0-11 UTEP team. So without a doubt, my vote is casted for UTEP.
Well, I think UTEP's the worst team. I'm just saying since Baylor, because of the expectations, is why I put them as the worst.
Which Alabama team is better, 2016 or 2017?
I think 2016.
Even though they lost in the national championship?
Yes.
Well, we'll have to see how the season ends, but I'm going to say 2017 by a little bit, and that's only because of the development of Jalen Hurts. He's had another year under his belt to get better.
I think if you put this year's Jalen Hurts on last year's Bama team, it's an insane team. But there are just too many. I think they had too many threats on their defense to vote against.
Where has
last
Bo
year.
Scarborough been?
He's around. I mean,
he gets carries every game. It's just he's not putting up the 150-plus yards everybody was expecting him to coming out of high school.
I mean, they have a couple running backs that they like to go to. I mean, Damian Harris was one that we saw a lot in that Vanderbilt game.
He's the feature back, Damian Harris. Scarborough's kind of the second guy.
Yeah, I think that Vanderbilt game was pretty much the marquee rushing performance in my opinion. They've had better games, but that game, it just didn't seem like there was a whole lot of passing in that game, as it was just smash mouth football between Alabama and pretty much just Alabama because another team didn't show up, even though Blake said that Vanderbilt would be a threat to Alabama. So
I didn't say they'd be a threat. I just said they would be within 10.
The final score was like 56-0.
Mind you, coming into the game, Vanderbilt had 1 loss, and they just had some good wins. And
Bama
that was
was
after
undefeated.
Alabama struggled to get a win. No one could have said it was going to be 56. No one.
I never said it was going to be 56, but we all agreed that you were crazy for saying it was within 10.
Still.
Should Sam Darnold go to the draft this year?
Absolutely not. No, absolutely not.
I mean, if this was the beginning of the year, I would have said slam dunk yes, considering he was a top 3 pick. And he's been great as of the last 4 or 5 games, don't get me wrong, but because of his early struggles in the year, I think he needs another year to build up his draft stock, so I'm going to say stay in school.
I mean, it honestly depends, because I still think if he leaves, he's going to be a top 5 pick. It just, to him, it's does he want to come back, improve some of his techniques, help USC get better, or is he trying to get his paycheck now? So it comes down to what his personal decision is, because whether he leaves this year or next year, he's still going to get paid. It's just, does he want to help himself out in the long run?
Thoughts on who could become the next head coach of Tennessee?
I mean, it's so up in the air right now. There's so many names floating around. I think it's almost
Mora?
Sure. Let's go with that.
Sure, Jim Mora, why not?
I'm going to go from one of those guys who's going from broadcast booth down to the sidelines again. I mean, I'm still very confident with this. John Gruden is going to be a highly thought after.
How many times have you said that?
No, I agree with you, but Oh, I thought that was
He
the
has
same.
way too many connections to the university.
But
That's
why
the
would he
same
leave
answer
the
I get-
broadcast booth?
That's the same answer I get because money.
Money.
Oh yeah. I think that Gruden would be a for sure answer, but I think that's the answer we gave last week too. I think we had a similar question.
As a USC fan, so let's go with the two of you guys. Would you rather see them face Oklahoma, Georgia, or Penn State in a bowl game?
Penn State.
Penn State.
Wow, you can answer two because that was really quick.
I mean, a rematch of last year's Rose Bowl. I'm not complaining. I want to see Penn State
That'd be
USC
really
again.
Entertaining. The best atmosphere in each Power 5 conference. Because we got time, so we can go with some of the more in-depth questions.
I'll start it off. Pac-12. I'm gonna go with Autzen. Big 12. I'm gonna go with. See, I really like Oklahoma State and what they do. We've talked about this before. That paddle thing they do, where the whole front row like hits that paddle against the wall and it's super loud. I think that's awesome. SEC. I mean, there's some good ones though, but there's just that's a toss up. I'll get back to that one.
Okay, ACC. I'll say either Clemson
Well, I mean,
or Florida.
I'm not done
right.
yet, Lyle.
All
Wow,
cut-
Lyle.
Easy,
Power 5 conference.
easy, Lyle.
All right, cut
Easy,
that out, cut that
bud.
out.
Easy. It's all good. ACC, you got to go with Clemson easily. And then, what's the last one I got? Big Ten? No, I still got to do Big Ten. Big Ten, I feel like, it was environment or atmosphere?
Atmosphere.
Atmosphere, I'm going to go with Ohio State, but I was very close to giving it to Wisconsin. Or actually, wait, no. Nebraska. When Nebraska's really good. When Nebraska's really good, that's a good one. But now that they're bad, it's kind of not that good.
So starting off with Pac-12, I feel like it would have to be Oregon. I think Autzen Stadium's got to have the best. I think, of course, I haven't experienced it, but within the last couple years, I think Husky Stadium in Seattle might be there too. Of the four that I've been to, being four of the Pac-12 South schools, it's USC, no question. It's just different, and it's a more historic venue. Big Ten, a good Nebraska team, I would say Nebraska. I might say Michigan. I think a night like that Notre Dame-Michigan night game from 2011, I think was the coolest football game I've seen on TV, and that was one of the few games where I haven't been to, where I just would have thought, you know what, I don't care who's playing, I would give anything to be at this football game right now. Big 12, I think Texas has a good one, but I would go with Oklahoma State. ACC, don't forget about Virginia Tech, but I would probably say Clemson. And then, who am I missing? SEC. My cousin helped on the renovation to Tiger Stadium for LSU, and he says it's pretty wild there. So I think a night game at LSU would be pretty cool.
A night game at Death Valley is crazy.
Okay, Pac-12, I'm going to say Autzen. I think we're all going to take Oregon for the Pac-12. Big Ten, I'm going to say Penn State. And you guys said Penn State. When Penn State is at its best, that student section is unreal.
Whiteout Penn State game.
Exactly. And I'm going to stick to the same type of theme here for the SEC. This might be a little bit of a hot take too, but I'm going to go with Tennessee. When they're really good, that student section, again, is popping. ACC, Clemson, or Florida State would be my pick. And then Big 12, I think I got to go with Oklahoma State.
Lyle and I literally have the same exact ones. Like, team for team, stadium for stadium, the same exact ones. I mean, I'd throw Ohio State in the mix for the Big Ten as well, because I've experienced games there, and they have been berserk.
But like I said, though, in regards to, atmosphere, environment, I do like the Oklahoma State thing, but overall, like, stadium, also major shout-out to Oklahoma, because I've seen photos and videos of that place when it's rocking, and it looks insane. But I just gave the edge to Oklahoma State mainly because I think, environment and atmosphere-wise, that little tradition they do, which is, I think, probably the only, school in the country that does something like that, it's very unique and different, so I do like that and give them the edge.
You're Lincoln Riley. You're the head coach of Oklahoma. What are your actions that you would do to discipline Baker Mayfield?
I taught you well, son. I mean, I wouldn't do anything. I mean, Baker Mayfield came out and apologized. What are you going to do? Like, what are you going to do to him? He grabbed his crotch. He had an itch, So what? I don't think there should be any punishment for him.
Very little punishment at the least.
I don't really... This is more of a reprimanding situation. And by reprimanding, I would say a stern one. If you're doing anything, and by anything at all, set him out for the first drive of your next game, if anything.
Do you think Miami's close game was a fluke, or are they actually going to struggle later this season?
I think it was kind of a fluke, but also keep in mind that Virginia isn't a bad team. I was more surprised with the fact that this was a close game with UVA leading at Hard Rock Stadium or whatever they're calling it now. If this game was in Charlottesville, I would have not been surprised at all. But I don't think it was necessarily a fluke, but if that's what people are referring to it, then yeah, I'll say it's that.
I don't think it was a fluke. However, I think when it gets down to the ACC title game, I think Clemson ends up being victorious. I think they're just a little more well-rounded than the Hurricanes.
My favorite part from the entire game was just watching Lyle freak out as they're down 2 touchdowns going, Notre Dame lost to this team? What the heck? But, I mean, I'm a little worried with Miami, but the fact they were able to make that comeback, what was it, 20-14? They ended up winning by, I think, 2 touchdowns. So a nice turnaround. Virginia, they're not a slouch of a team. They're a somewhat decent team, so it's not like they were blowing it to a 3-win team, but definitely a little concerning, but Lyle said it perfectly. I think when Miami plays Clemson, Clemson is just going to destroy, well, not destroy them, but I think they're going to convincingly win.
Who was the most overlooked or underrated player on the ASU football team?
Overlooked or underrated? I guess Christian Sam, because at this point we continue to talk about N'Keal Harry. I think Demario Richard is getting up there too, but Christian Sam, as far as I know, still leads the Pac-12 conference in tackles.
I think he's top 5 in the country in tackles as well.
Well, then Christian Sam. Slam dunk pick.
Well, that's a pretty good one for defense, so I'll go with you on that one. Offense, I think, Benjamin deserves a little bit of credit. I mean, from what the guy's been doing. He hasn't had a ton of carries.
Yeah, 6 of his carries this year?
I mean, I think he should be getting more from what I've seen. But anyway, I want to talk about N'Keal Harry for a second. I know we do it a lot when we talk about ASU. The fact that this guy wasn't a Biletnikoff finalist is beyond me. I mean, this guy is
so
easily
dumb.
How is this guy not one of the 10 best receivers in the country? If anybody's ever watched N'Keal Harry, you'd agree.
I'm going to go with the receiving core. I'm going to go with Kyle Williams. This guy's pure speed athlete, has 5 touchdowns, 55 receptions. 55 receptions, though. Listen to this. 636 total yards on 55. That's a pretty good average. That's averaging 11.5 yards per reception. So I'm going to go Kyle Williams on the offense side of the ball. I think Josh nailed it with Christian Sam on defense.
I like the Christian Sam pick. When I saw the stat that went up that he was leading the Pac-12 in tackles, I was astonished. I mean, I knew he was having a pretty good season, and then I think Josh just said top 5 in the country in tackles. That's truly remarkable. So very underrated right there. I mean, I was going to also throw some love to Demario Richard, mainly because of what he's been doing the last few weeks. We've been harshing him all season, saying, I've been harsh. Lyle's been harsh. We've been harsh, saying he's the guy that only gets 2 yards, 3 yards per carry. But the last few weeks, he has proven me wrong. He has looked very good.
Here's your info on Christian Sam. In the Pac-12, he's first in solo and total tackles. In NCAA as a whole, he's 3rd in solo and 4th in total tackles. And he's missed 2 tackles all season. Has 2 missed tackles.
Wow. Yep. And with the Sun Devils defense, it seems like he would be missing more. But he's not.
A lot of great questions this week. And that does bring us to the pick'em. So, Lyle, get up, start ringing those bells. As always, though, guys, we need to check in on the Harris Highlights Pick'em League on ESPN Fantasy and Agent Killer Deluxe. He has officially run away with this now. He has 92 points. I think he has like a 5-point lead or something. So, Agent Killer Deluxe, this is yours to lose. Way to go, bud. Thanks for staying active, though, every week. I don't think I made picks last week. I think I've started to fall off as well. But, guys, that does bring us to our own rankings. And the worst part is, guys, there were picks last week that I made that ended up being right, where it was like one of you guys didn't pick them and the other ones. But then I had the games like UAB, Florida, the Indiana Rutgers that really just screwed me. Like, if it weren't for those, I actually was almost perfect last week. I was almost perfect, but sadly I wasn't. I am still in last place with 70 points. In 3rd place is Lyle with 78 points. In 2nd place is Brady with 79 points. And really now, this is officially Josh's to lose. He has 86 points. Yep. He had a very good week. Lyle, it's safe to say there's going to be no going back to back, as Drake once said.
I can take 2nd place.
Well, you're in 3rd place, so
by 1. Yeah, by 1 point.
It is officially rivalry week, guys, but I'm kind of bummed because we are missing 2 of the best rivalry games this week. One of them being USC UCLA, the other one being Harvard Yale. That was a great game. Yale won. It's like the first time they've won the Ivy League since like the early 80s. So Yale, shout out to you. My friend Aiden was at the game. Hope you had a great time, Aiden. And the first game of the week is USF South Florida at UCF Central Florida. A lot of people coming into this season picked this game as going to be the one where this is going to determine who makes the, New Year's Six game. I think it still is. But guys, who wins this one? And it's on Friday as well, Friday morning.
I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take Central Florida right off the bat. I think this is a matchup that a lot of people have been excited for. I've been excited for this one. I think Central Florida just takes it, and one reason why I'm high on these guys is because just a few years ago, they were one of the worst teams in college football, and they have really bounced back. So I'm impressed with the way that these guys have played. I used to pick them a lot in our Uniswag, which now, Blake, you're going to get a lot of comments for because we've had comments for them before. Now that somebody mentioned it, probably going to be more, but I'm taking the Knights.
Quentin Flowers keeps it close for South Florida, but I like UCF in that game, very close.
I like UCF at home in this one, plus UCF's undefeated and will finish the season 11-0. I'm going to go UCF.
Coming into the year, a lot of people had Quentin Flowers on their Heisman watch. Because of that one loss, he kind of died down, but he's put up some good numbers this year. I'm actually going to go with South Florida on the road with this one. Washington State at Washington, the Apple Cup. Not as hype as people thought it was going to be at the beginning of the season, but still going to be a very good game with Pac-12 implications. Or was Washington, they're officially eliminated from the game, right?
They're done. Wazoo is in the title game with a win.
Okay, so it is Washington State and Washington. At Washington, though, who gets this one?
I'm going to take Washington at home. I think Washington State has been struggling to an extent the last few weeks. I mean, they played some good football, but not how they were at the beginning of the year. I sincerely hope that the Cougars pull out this win because I want to see a rematch of SC and Washington State in the Pac-12 championship game. I just don't think we get to see that. I think the Dogs win the Apple Cup at home. If this was in Pullman, pick might be different.
Like Josh said, I think the fact that it's at home gives UW the edge. Again, another really close game, but I think the Huskies get the win.
I'm going with the Dogs. I'm going Huskies at home in this one.
So if Washington State loses, then it's officially Stanford, correct?
Yes.
Oh man, that is a tough one. I am going to go with Washington mainly because they are at home, but I hope this is a good Apple Cup because it's been so long since the Apple Cup was relevant at all. Florida State at Florida. Woo, this could have been a worst of the worst.
Can this be our honorable mention for worst of the worst?
Yeah.
I don't know what I was going to do in this game. Guys, I'm going Florida. I'll go Florida at home. I'm going to take Florida at home to take down the Seminoles.
I'm going to go with Florida State. I think they have the edge, to be honest, despite being on the road. I think the Seminoles get it done.
I think, surprisingly, Florida State gets a win on the road this week.
This is, ooh. Well, my initial gut reaction was to go with Florida State, so I'm going to keep that one. Now this one, Georgia at Georgia Tech. You see it, you're not going to think much of it, but really quickly, Nick Chubb, coming in, what was it, last season, he said the number one reason he came back to Georgia this year was to beat Georgia Tech. He can absolutely not stand Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech, they can't stand Georgia. I think this is going to be a game that is going to have a lot of chippiness in it. I think there might be a little mini brawl. I think there's going to be some ejections. So if you want a good game to watch that's flying under the radar, it's going to be this one.
I'm taking Georgia. I think this is a feisty Georgia team that is looking to finish their season on the right track after that embarrassing loss at Auburn. I think the Bulldogs win this one over their rivals from Atlanta.
This game might have a lot of chippiness to it, like Blake said, but Georgia's hands down the better team. I think both Chubb and Sony Michel have big games on the ground, and I think the Bulldogs get a win.
Georgia wins on the road.
Yeah, I think Georgia wins this one easily, but can we just talk about Georgia and their running backs they produced the last 5 years? It seems like one goes down, another one just steps up. Notre Dame at Stanford. Now, was the last time Notre Dame was at Stanford the Gus Johnson field goal where he, just went speechless at the end of the game?
And Stanford won.
That was great.
Yeah, knocked the Irish out of playoff contention.
Yeah, well, Notre Dame and Stanford. Notre Dame, their last couple games have been pretty disappointing in my opinion. Lyle can talk about that a little bit more when he makes his pick. Stanford's been playing good football. They've been playing well at home. They've been playing well against Notre Dame at home. And this is a battle of two running backs that I can't wait to watch. Josh Adams versus Bryce Love. I think Bryce Love deserves to be in the top 2 for the Heisman Trophy. What he's done this season is incredible. What?
So what you're saying is Baker Mayfield's not in the top 3 or top 2.
I never said that, but I do think, for me, my vote is for Bryce Love.
In the top 2. So who's the other one?
I'm going to say Baker Mayfield.
So Barkley's third all of a sudden.
Barkley was never first. All I said was you guys shouldn't count out Baker Mayfield. You can go back and play this back. I never said anything that you are implying.
Continue.
I think Brady knows that because he's smiling.
I also like your lawyer you just put right there.
Go ahead and check the court record, and you will see that I did not perjure myself.
The stenographer agrees.
I think Bryce Love deserves the Heisman. I think he goes to New York. I think he outperforms Adams in this game. I'm taking Stanford at home.
Notre Dame definitely struggles at Stanford. However, the difference between these two teams is Notre Dame has more offensive weapons than just a running back, where Stanford, in my opinion, really doesn't. This is definitely a battle of two running backs. Notre Dame doesn't play great at Stanford. I think it's going to be a very good game and one that's very close again, but I'm going to take the Irish.
You know, I like Notre Dame on the road in this game. I think Stanford's been playing inconsistent. I think Bryce Love is a better running back. I think Stanford plays very well at home, but Notre Dame's been on a hot streak. The game against Navy was a little too close to call. I know Lyle's not happy about the outcome of that. Yes, you guys won, but it should have been much closer. And I think Sun Devil fans feel the same way about the Oregon State win. But I think Notre Dame gets a win on the road this week.
I think Stanford gets it done at home. I do not like what I've seen from Notre Dame the last few weeks. They've been iffy, and I think Bryce Love is just the real deal. And we've seen when he plays how good Stanford is. And Stanford, I mean, they're most likely going to be in the Pac-12 title game. So this is a very good Stanford team that's kind of flying under the radar. Louisville at Kentucky.
There's no way I can pick against Louisville in this game. The fact that we are having Heisman conversations without Lamar Jackson is it's reasonable, but based on his stats, it's absurd. He's still one of the best quarterbacks in the country. I think if you put him on any other team in the country, he's outstanding, but simply put that this team isn't good this year, I don't think that he deserves to be in Heisman contention. I think your team has to help a little bit because you have to be a better team than Louisville is. However, if you take him off their team, they are awful. They have a losing record. He is the reason why they have 7 wins. I'm taking Louisville on the road, no questions asked. It's an absolute blowout.
I'm with Josh. I think Louisville wins big against Kentucky.
Louisville on the road against Kentucky.
It's honestly just a sad thing that Lamar Jackson is having, I mean, almost a season as great as last year, maybe even better. I think his stats in some categories are actually better, but that Louisville team, my goodness, they are so bad. He's going to leave this year. Next year, I don't think Louisville's going to get even like 4 wins. I think this year they maybe have 6, maybe 7. That is going to be an awful team. Now, if there was like a most valuable player, I think he would probably win it because he's by far the most valuable player, I think, in the nation. But yeah, I think Louisville gets this one done. Ohio State at Michigan, the game, but not as much hype as it did have last year. Michigan's going to be out of the, well, who knows with the way the college football playoff rankings are. Even though Michigan lost, maybe they'll keep them at 24 or 25 just to make this game a little more relevant. It is at Michigan this year. Who wins this game?
I think people are going to pick Ohio State very quickly in this. But again, it's a rivalry game. We saw, just like we did with USC, UCLA, anything can happen. We've seen the way that Michigan plays football. You know, they tend to play down to their opponents, and sometimes their opponents play down to them. I think Ohio State wins on the road, but I'm going to say they only win by 2 touchdowns when I think a lot of people are predicting them to win by like 20 or 30 points.
Michigan's a tough place to play. Like Josh just said, it's rivalry week. I think it's going to be really close. JT Barrett will get over the line on every carry he has, and Ohio State gets the win.
I like that reference, though. That was good. You know, speaking of quarterbacks, I think it's going to be rough for Michigan that Brandon Peters went down this past week with an injury. I don't remember. Is he officially ruled out for this?
Yes.
Do you know? Yeah. So that's rough for the true freshman. I think JT Barrett and this Buckeye team easily gets it done in Ann Arbor.
If the injury didn't happen, I'd be going with Michigan. One, because they are at home. It's a rivalry game. Anything can happen. As long as Michigan can score points, they'll win. Because that defense, is one of the best in the country, one of the 5 best. But JT Barrett, he's been playing hotter than I thought he'd be. And Ohio State, they're just rolling like crazy. So I'm going to go with Ohio State. Michigan, though, I definitely think they're going to be a lot closer in the game than people are giving them credit for. West Virginia at Oklahoma.
There's no way Baker Mayfield loses this game at home. That's all I'm going to say.
I think this game's closer than a lot of people think. Will Greer's been playing really well.
Yeah, the thing about that is I don't think he's going to be playing anytime soon.
He had surgery.
His finger's kind of going the other way,
really?
in case you didn't see it.
He had hand surgery on, I think it was Saturday or Sunday morning this past week.
His finger was like going like this. It looked bad.
Went back into the side.
Yeah, it looked
It was
bad.
touching like the backside of his wrist.
Yeah, but no, it's all good. Continue. It doesn't matter.
On his throwing hand.
If the Mountaineers had Will Greer, I'd say this game would be much closer, but without him, I say Oklahoma wins big.
You know, if you look at these two quarterbacks, if Greer was healthy and playing, it'd be a much closer game. But the fact that Baker Mayfield has thrown as many interceptions in the entire season that Nate Peterman did this past week, and that's 5, you can't pick against Baker Mayfield. I'm going Baker Mayfield and Oklahoma at home, easily winning this game.
Baker Mayfield's a man on a mission, especially with Will Greer out. That's going to hurt them. I think Oklahoma wins, and they win big, huge. Texas A&M at LSU.
Go Tigers, spelled with an E and an A and a U and an X at home.
Darius, guys, gets it done for the Tigers this week. I like LSU.
I'm going LSU at home.
I'm going to go with the Aggies on the road, just because. Why not?
My thing.
Well, sorry. Speaking of your thing, here's your game of the week, Brady. That is the battle for the state of Indiana.
The old
A battle that all 49 states could care less about, except for one of them. That is IU.
Oh, man. I really, really hope Indiana wins this game, Brady. I don't think they do. I'm sorry. I'm taking the Boilermakers at home, and I hope I'm wrong.
Indiana has one playmaker on that team, and that's Simi Cobbs, and that's one more elite playmaker than Purdue's got. Brady goes with Notre Dame a lot as well, so I'm going to back him up. I'm taking IU.
I love that, Lyle. I like how you said that. You know, Sindelar, the quarterback for Purdue, got hurt a couple weeks ago. I'm sorry, David Blue got hurt a couple weeks ago. Sindelar is the quarterback now. He's not playing great. He's thrown 6 interceptions in the last, I think it was 3 games that he's played. Richard Lego's thrown 7 all season long. I'm going to go with, surprise, surprise, the Hoosiers in this one, and they are going to go to a bowl game for the 3rd straight year, going 6-6, 3 straight years in a row. Tom Allen gets his first official winning season as the head coach of the Hoosiers.
This is going to be a great game, a very great game. Probably one of the better IU Purdue games in a recent memory. That's what my guess is. I am going to go with Purdue at home. I see the ESPN predictor thing does have the advantage to Purdue, so I'm going to go with that. But I think it's going to be a game. Simi Cobbs, I think he's going to go off. You know, he's only got 1 or 2 games left. I mean, if IU loses, they're not going to be in the bowl game. So this could potentially be his last game as a Hoosier. So I think for that reason he's going to go off. But I like Purdue at home. Boise State at Fresno State.
I can't pick against Boise State in this game. I would like to see Fresno State get a win, especially with how upsetting they were last year. 2 good teams coming out of the Mountain West. I'm taking the 25th ranked Broncos on the road in the Central Valley.
Fresno State might be at home, but I like Boise State. I like what they've been doing. I'm going to go with the Broncos.
I'm going with Boise State and the Broncos as well. Blake?
Fresno State is not getting enough love for the turnaround they've had this year. I think they have 8 wins on the year. 1 win maybe last season, so what an improvement. But I am going to go with the Boise State Broncos in this one. A potential Arizona State matchup in a bowl game. We're going to have to wait and see.
No. We're going to get ASU versus IU in a bowl game, and I'm going to cry because I don't know who I'd root for.
Clemson at South Carolina. The battle for the state of South Carolina.
Yeah, I don't know how Clemson could lose this game. I just think they're the better team by leaps and bounds. You know, South Carolina's 8-3. They've had a pretty good year. I don't think Clemson loses this game on the road in Columbia.
Clemson's got just below an 85% chance to win this game, and I think the reason it's not higher is only because it's at South Carolina. Yes, the Gamecocks are 8-3 on the year. They've had a solid year, but there's no way the Tigers lose.
You know, I usually say Skokocks, but I think this week I'm going with the most intimidating color in all of sports. I'm going Clemson with their fierce purple.
I mean, this year I have been a fan of the Cox, but I'm telling you guys, I think Clemson is going to get the job done. You guys are sleeping on this game, though. They are 8-3. That is the Gamecocks. They have been an impressive team. They have some good games this year, but Clemson, I mean, ever since that Syracuse game, we've just seen what a different team they are. I still think they're a top 4 team in the country. I am going to go with the Tigers, but I do think this is going to be a game that going into the fourth quarter is within 6. Within 6. Now we got arguably the best game of the week, and that is...
no argument. Sorry.
Okay. We got arguably the best game of the week, and that is Alabama at Auburn, the Iron Bowl. A very hype game because essentially, well, whoever wins this game, they're going to be in the SEC title game, battling for a college football playoff spot. Guys, I think whoever loses this game, their chances of the playoff are completely gone. Whoever wins this game, their chances are increasingly high. So Alabama-Auburn, who wins this potential classic of an Iron Bowl?
Oh, I think it's going to be a classic. I think it is going to be hard to live up to that 2013 Iron Bowl. I think the Crimson Tide win by a field goal, a fourth quarter field goal.
This is such an absolute toss-up. Both teams are so good. They've played so well all year. I just find it really hard to pick against Alabama. I know they're on the road. I know this game's at Jordan-Hare, but I'm going with the Tide. Very, very close game. Within a touchdown, no doubt.
I'm going with the Elephants in this game. Go Alabama.
I'm very surprised at you guys. I thought I was going to be alone, but I'm going to go with the Auburn Tigers in this one. Auburn, they've been playing some of the best football the last few weeks in all of college football, and they are at home. Auburn at home. They're kind of like Iowa at home, where they're just a team you do absolutely not want to face. And I think they're going to get it done. I think it's going to be a close game. I don't think either team is going to win by more than 10. I think it's going to be within a touchdown. But I am going to go with Auburn in the upset in this one. But that does bring us to the absolute worst game of the week. Well, there's some other contenders, but I thought just matchup-wise, this is probably the worst game of the week. And that is BYU at Hawaii. Both teams very underwhelming this year. I mentioned BYU being a letdown. They have 3 wins. Hawaii has 3 wins. It's a battle of the Mormons. It's a battle of the Hawaiians. Guys, who gets this win on a very, very beautiful day in Hawaii?
Well, you see, this is a toss-up for me because I had a friend who went to a NCAA conference. He goes to Cal State San Marcos, so he goes to a lot of conferences. I guess I don't know why he goes, but it seems super awesome. And he met a girl there from Hawaii. So I would like to pick Hawaii. However, I also have a friend that when he applied to BYU, he asked what type of transportation he could have, like personal transportation, and they said you can get a personal golf cart and park it outside your dorm. Doesn't have to be in a spot. You can just pull it up and leave it there. That's pretty darn cool. Also, he was Mormon. I'm taking BYU on the road.
Usually I've done detailed preparation for these worst of the worst picks, but it's rivalry week. Everything's different. Hawaii wins.
You know, I'm going to say aloha to Hawaii and aloha goodbye to BYU. I'm going Hawaii winning this game.
I love it. That's great.
I still got to show love for my good old friend Taylor, who's at BYU. I mean, the Storm and Mormons, you got to love them.
They just got Coke allowed on their campus.
Yeah, like 2 months ago. I'm going to go with the Storm and Mormons of BYU in this one. Do it for Brigham Young and, more importantly, Joseph Smith. That does bring us to the final rivalry game of the week. Arguably, in our opinions, the best game of the week. The best rivalry. And I think, actually, guys, this might be, like, it's the current longest.
It is the oldest rivalry trophy in
the oldest
football.
Rivalry trophy in the game. Arizona at Arizona State. Now, this is going to be a much better game than last year because both of these teams are going to be bowl eligible. It is going to be in beautiful Tempe, Arizona at Sun Devil Stadium for a, 2:30 kickoff our time, 1:30 Pacific time, 4:30 Eastern time, our very first day game while at Arizona State. Me personally, I absolutely love it. I think it's fantastic. Lyle, he's just bummed because that means he has to wear sunscreen to the game, but it's fine, you won't burn. Josh, give me your dad's phone number because I'm going to ask him if he can send one of his sun hats that Lyle can wear at the game.
I will do that. Gentlemen, here in the Valley of the Sun, it is officially hate week. Woo! And Arizona has not been playing excellent football as of lately. The Sun Devils are officially bowl eligible. and I don't think Brady is, but everyone else is returning from Thanksgiving break to see this game in Tempe. You're coming back.
I'm coming home Saturday morning.
Saturday, as am I.
I'm leaving early. I'm shooting the game, dude.
All
Come
right.
on.
You're shooting the game. We'll be here sitting in the student section. It's hate week here in Phoenix, and I'm taking the Sun Devils at home. Down go the Wildcats.
Tucson is the pit of misery.
Dilly dilly.
Dilly dilly. Manny Wilkins, true friend of the crown. No? Oh,
I'm going to
okay.
be rooting my tail off for Arizona State, as we all will be. And I hate to do it, but I think Khalil Tate finds a way to beat the Devils. I don't think that ASU defense is going to be ready for that run attack, that rushing attack that Khalil Tate and the U of A offense brings. So I got to go with the Wildcats.
Lyle, you're off the show.
Wow. You know, I'm going to go with, why not, right? I'm going to go Arizona State because, well, why not? Oh, I know why. I go to school there. I give them like $40,000 a year. That's why. That's a really good reason. I like that reason. Yes, Khalil Tate's good, but like Manny Wilkins is a true friend of the crown.
Dilly dilly.
Dilly dilly. I'm going ASU in this game.
I will give Lyle some respect for picking Arizona in this one. That's not an awful pick considering that Khalil Tate has been fantastic. However, he was awful this week against Oregon. Completely awful. And all the way, shout out
that defense.
Shout out to Justin Herbert for coming back. I mean, he surprised us and he looked good. When Oregon has him, he's a good team, but that's irrelevant because we are talking about the game of the week, and that is Arizona and Arizona State. I was about to bust into a rap right there. I almost did for a second. This is going to be a fantastic game. I think it is going to be one of the best Arizona State games the last 10 or 15 years because both these teams, they're so evenly balanced. Like, they're not both bad, but they're not both great. They're both just pretty good. They're both these teams
okay.
Both these teams are really pretty good. I think Arizona State is going to show up. I really hope Sun Devil Stadium is going to be rocking. I'm sure it is. Home field advantage, I got to go with Arizona State in this one. Mainly because of the home field advantage. If Khalil Tate is off, that Arizona team is off because as we've seen, they go through him. So I am going to go with the Sun Devils. They're going to get their 7th win of the year. And we are going to await what bowl we're going to be getting. That's going to be a lot of fun, but that does wrap up this week's show. Sorry it was a little extra shorter, but that's okay because next week we are going to be back with a vengeance with a lot to talk about. As always, though, thank you for watching. Really quickly, shout out to SeatGeek for sponsoring the video. Heading over to SeatGeek.com, enter the promo code Harris Highlights and get $20 off that order. Bowl season's coming up. Hey, Christmas is coming up too, you know. You got that special someone in your life or you got a family member. Use the promo code to get them tickets and save some money. But hey, you're looking like a great person for getting them the gift. That's what I gotta say. Speaking of the holiday season, yes, the holiday season. Also, I think Christmas music is starting way too early. It should start playing the day after Thanksgiving, in my opinion, but that's just my opinion. Make sure you head on over to the Harris Highlights merch site and get yourself some merch. We can't stress this enough because the shipping does take about, 2 weeks or so. You don't want to get it too late and miss out. It's the perfect gift for anyone. If you got a kid, we do have parents to listen to the show. If you got a kid, I know they're going to like the shirt that says Zane for Heisman. They might not know what it means, but you will, and that's all that matters. Get them some merchandise. There's a lot of great stuff on the site, and, you know, Santa knows. Santa knows. So if you want something, I'll put in a good word with Santa for you guys, but,
Blake is personal friends with Santa.
Personal friend. Santa's been a subscriber since 30,000, so you gotta love it. But for Josh Schaefer, Lyle Goldstein, and Brady Klein, this has been Blake Harris. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Have a great week, and go State.
Go State!
Go State!
Of course, Lyle didn't say it.